Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Unicorn Talk podcast. And today, once again, I'm having a chat with Bethany Briggs. She got married, so there's a different last name now. So congrats on that once again. And today is Heal Unicorn, and we have an incredible topic for you. The topic will is about what do you do when you feel drained, when you feel overwhelmed, or when you feel burnout, whether you're already in burnout or getting to that point. So that will be the topic for today. But before we jump to the topic, I wanted to give a little bit of an introduction to who am I and what do I do and what is this podcast all about. So um, the podcast, as you can probably already imagine at this point, will be Heal the Unicorn, a Wednesday calls that I have with Bethany and sometimes with Megan, and soon maybe with other people as well, is about all the stuff that's inside of us, bringing it out, putting it right here in front of you, and talking about it. Okay, so I wanted to share this quote that I came across that clear that beautifully explains what it is that I do and what it is that I offer as a coach. And Bethany hasn't heard this, so it's going to be new for her as well. So all the reactions that you get to see will be genuine reactions. So here's a quote: "If I want to be free, I've got to be me. Not the me that you think I should be, not the me that I think my wife thinks I should be, not the me that I think my kids think I should be. If I want to be free, I've got to be me. So I better know who me is." And that is a beautiful summary of what it is that I offer as a coach. And Bethany knows that, so she's nodding her head, yes, yes, because I help my clients to gently and in a fun way dive deep into uncovering of who they are, bring that out, embrace it, own it. And this is where this the description that I have of what Empathy Unicorn Academy is, live authentically, comes from knowing who you are. So you can live authentically, feel free. That's where the freedom comes from, and achieve more. Because when you know who you are and you feel free, most people fear that they're not going to be doing anything. They're just going to be sitting down and doing nothing. But the opposite happens. The opposite is true, that you actually go out there and you do a lot more than you would have, because you become this powerful ball of energy. And that energy is used in the place where you actually want to use it, by following your deepest desires. So there, that's my intro. What do you think of that, Bethany?
I love it. It's perfect. Like it's perfectly imperfect. It's just like it explains everything without like I guess over explaining. It's just straight to the point. This is what it is. I like it a lot.
Thank you. And I like how you
And
said
that
perfectly
quote,
imperfect.
yeah, and the quote's beautiful because it's so true. Like to be the best version of yourself. That's how I kind of got up to it out of it, like the best version of yourself that you are, that you want to be, without the conception of like your kids, your husband, your friends, but who you are as a person.
Yeah, exactly. And thank you for pointing that out as well, because this is exactly like, because I've been trying to find the right words to explain what is it that I do, that I help people do. And boundaries come in there perfectly as well, because we we together identify boundaries without including anyone else in your life, and what in the ways of what their expectations are of you. It's all about you, who you are, what you want, what you don't want, but we focus on what you want, and then how are you going to get it, right?
Yeah.
Sounds simple, and it is simple. And the process of going through it, some people do fear, because this is what I also hear as a coach, is that people feel scared on taking on this journey because uncovering who they are is scary. But without putting words in anyone's mouth, what would you say your experience was of uncovering who you are on this journey?
For me, it was exciting, it was empowering, but it has those moments of being scared and feeling alone. Um, but also being able to work through those and to challenge yourself to be that best version of yourself, to trust yourself. Um, yeah. It honestly, it just is really empowering because like after you get through all those blocks, you see like the light at the end of the tunnel, the sunshine, the beautiful flower that's there, or in our case the beautiful unicorn that's there, that has been there all along, that was just waiting to emerge, that was just like blocked in and like hiding.
Mm-hmm.
um because all the good change comes with scary times, comes with challenges, but also comes with the vibrant, exciting times as well. I mean, that's what life is. It's about all those experiences.
Exactly. And I'm curious to hear, what did you do, or what were your options when you were talking about that sometimes you do feel alone and that there's like a little bit of that struggle. What did you do in those times and in those moments?
For me, a lot of it was, having you as a coach, that helped tremendously. Having that open space to just kind of word vomit and not be judged. And then to hear, oh, okay, that's normal. Huh. All right, nice.
Yeah.
You took away the alone. And then also like yoga, my journaling was huge because then I could just put it all out in one spot, and then I could pick through and be like, well, what did I learn from that? What was, ask those self-assessment questions. um Meditation was always huge, but oh, my poetry, my writing, that's always helpful too. But that's a newer thing. It's almost been a year, but that's a newer thing that came about later on. But yeah, it was having that person to talk to and journaling more than anything, and then filling my cup back up. That's another thing, taking that time to just be, and to put away things that aren't necessary at the time,
Hmm.
and fill your cup up so you can give to others. I think those are
Hmm. And
those are the main things.
I want to say thank you for answering that question because that response can actually be also applied to today's topic,
Yeah.
right? See how it kind of flows in there, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Because again, today's topic is about what do you do when you are feeling drained, right? Because as a collective energy, we do feel um, off sometimes. So, for example, this week, Bethany, you already shared that with me. So, um, what I can say now is that both of us have been feeling off and drained and just tired, and in that is overwhelm and burnout. So, what the response to the question that Bethany just shared falls into this category as well. But let's expand on it, right? So it's like putting all those things out there for people to see and hear, and hopefully see how that relates to them as well, right? So what do you feel like you want to say to all the people that are watching or listening when it comes to what has been causing you to feel that drain or overwhelm or burnout throughout this week and even previously before?
Well, for me, the best thing I could say was just putting too much on my plate, and not realizing the stuff that needs to be done with those things. Like in the moment, being like, yeah, I'm for it. But then, like, when it actually comes to it, it's kind of like, oh, like, and to kind of like really ask yourself, like, is it, before you agree to something, is this something that you really want to do? Is it gaining or is it draining?
Mm.
Before like actually like going through with it, because it's like boundaries, like with you, like you're setting that boundary, because the idea might sound amazing, like I kind of already said, but you know, like just like when it comes to it, it's like, oh, is it really amazing? Like, yes, I want to be there for that person, but is it for me? And the situation I'm in a friend's marriage, marriage. I'm in a friend's wedding, and I just had an experience yesterday where I just felt like is an overload of a lot of stuff. It was like, well, there's a cost here, there's a cost there, there's a cost here. And there's other things that I'm going with in life. We're investing, we're buying a house. That, and it kind of affected my money story in a way as well. But being able to use my journal to write everything down, and then going back and like reading it and being like, okay, so where are the points that, where can I learn from this? Like, and in this situation, I had one of the other bridesmaids kind of say something to me that triggered me a lot. And I I usually ask myself questions like, is it true? What I'm going to say, is it true? Is it beneficial? Is it kind? Is it necessary? Is it the right time and right place? And with what I was going to say and what I did say, it was none of those. And if, for me in that situation, if I would have stopped, took a deep breath, went to my journal first and then responded, it would have been different. But at the same time, I learned a lot about myself on how I can deal with these. And just, yeah, I had to fill my cup back up to be able to properly register everything and to help it set with me. And I mean, I was the bigger person in that situation. I apologized. I told her, hey, I'm sorry. We don't really know each other. And I can't remember everything exactly I said, but I did apologize. Just because I didn't want there to be any animosity for my friend on her wedding day, since we all have to do this together. And I had to think about it from a person's perspective. I think a perspective change is huge, because like being an open mind and like, okay, well, did they really mean it that way, or did I just perceive it that way because someone else in the past has said something to me like that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it sounds like there was a lot that led up to this one experience, because you yourself have been going through um, personally a lot and as a family a lot, because on top of everything you also just got married um, just last week, right? If I remember correctly, last week was
11th, yeah.
yeah
11th. Yeah.
yeah.
It's
So
new.
it's very very fresh, right? So you're going through a lot yourself, and it's very understandable for you to be rubbed the wrong way, and your usual way, because you mentioned that you could have journaled about it and
Mhm.
then responded, whereas in this case you reacted
Yeah.
instead of responding, and you got to learn a lot from this experience, right? And then you also or asking yourself questions: is it what's the benefit of that for me? Am I gaining, or am I draining myself, right, from this experience? What's in it for me? And these are the questions that anyone can ask themselves with anything, right? When we're taking something new on, um, ask yourself, what's in it for me? What am I gaining from it? Because and this is where people pleasing comes in place as well. And it's
Mhm.
important to point that out as well, because I'm a recovering people pleaser, and I know how draining it is when I give and I give and I give without having anything in there for me.
Mm-hmm.
So then I walk away completely drained and resentful.
Yeah.
That's not one of the feelings or emotions that I like to experience. So that's why I always check it at the door before I allow whatever it is that I'm about to take on, what's in it for me. And that's what you have just expressed, Bethany, that's what you did as well. And you actually get to uncover what's in it for you. And then if there is not, we all have a choice, right? Sometimes we do say yes to things that are not really benefiting us that much. And even in that moment, we can really still figure out what we can do that will benefit us in the long run. And there's always something in there. Then you mentioned recharging, that you would basically like recharge. That's the word I wrote down. I know you were saying something else, but I wrote down recharge. That you then take the time to check yourself, to work through and use your medicines. And I know you've mentioned them before in previous chats as well, videos that we did, and a few now where you were talking about journaling and meditation and yoga. And even walks outside. And then one of the other things you mentioned is apologizing, that you were the bigger person and that you apologized for your behavior,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Uh,
And with that, I believe that apology is important, but is not necessary in every scenario, because if you are very self-aware, right? Bethany, you are very self-aware. You know yourself. You know when the apology is needed and when it's not needed. Some people are not so self-aware and they feel this sense of self-righteousness where I must win, which is level two. And those of you that don't know what level two is a fighter, somebody who needs to win. And if you're getting angry right now, chances are that's you. Just pointing out the obvious for me, but might not be the obvious for you. So yeah, so if that's you, let us know in the comments. Hopefully, you're not too upset, but if you are, then let's have a conversation and see where that conversation leads us, right? But saying sorry only when you mean it is key, because a lot of people, including myself, I used to throw sorry around like it was confetti, just sorry, just so I don't have to deal with the situation. My daughter does used to do the same thing, just saying sorry for everything all the time. And there are a lot of great videos online that anyone can find, and we've showed her from teachers that basically say that instead of apologizing, you can thank them,
yeah.
right? You
Yeah.
can. And in this case, I'm curious to hear, how would you approach this apology if you were thanking her instead of apologizing?
If I was thanking her, I would be more like, well, thank you for helping me uncover some triggers that are blocks, that are down deep that I didn't realize, Thank you for challenging me. Um, in a way, but sometimes the challenging isn't the best thing. But in this situation, it was, because I learned a lot from it. And then, yeah, just, I mean, I think that's really it. Yeah, just thank you for, I don't know, it's a hard thing to say that too, I guess, it's hard, but it is like, she helped me uncover some things that I was unaware of. So I guess it's like, thank you for showing me things that I was unaware of.
Mhm.
And where I could grow and learn.
Yeah. I wanted to ask that because this is like a complete like
Yeah.
twist on how typically people respond to conversations and how typical people apologize for the way that they acted. And I'm curious to hear if anybody else who's listening or watching has any like suggestions of how they would approach that. For what comes up for me is this saying thank you for because it sounds like that this person has a very strong ego, and I do my best to avoid dealing people's egos. So when I feel that ego come up, um, I either sometimes avoid it or do stroke their ego.
Yeah.
So in this case, to stroke this person's ego, because the way I view it, and I know I mentioned it to you before we started recording, is that she might be coming from a place of defending the bride.
Right.
So I would have thanked her for, and again, I don't have the actual words because this is be specific to each scenario, but I would point out and say thank you for, because basically I would say I see like I get a sense that with your you're responding in defense of the bride, and I just want to say thank you for doing that for her, and I understand and I get where you're coming from, so thank you, right? And just leaving it at that, because certain responses can also trigger the ego to explode more.
And that's, yeah, in that situation, I allowed my ego to get the best of me. And I don't like it when that happens. I had to actually coach my ego afterwards and be like, hey, I understand what you're doing. You're just trying to protect me. You're just trying to be there for me in this time where I felt small when my gremlin was triggered too. But let's remember our jobs, our new jobs of, of being loving, understanding, show compassion, forgiving. Because in my journaling, I like forgave myself and I forgave her as well,
Yeah.
which in the past I would have never done, but I just felt like it was necessary because I did feel a little guilty and shameful afterwards because I'm like, well, I should have just left it alone. But if I would have left it alone, I would have been holding on to some of that still. And it's from past stuff, I feel like, as well, that like I finally am able to like release it and let it go and learn from it and grow now.
Yeah. And because today's topic is what do you do when you feel drained, and overwhelmed or feel like burnout. So you've shared one example with many in there of what was causing you to feel that drain, and the overwhelm, and then the burnout is part of that, because the burnout kind of goes hand in hand with overwhelm, right? When we feel
Right.
overwhelmed, we feel burnt out, that we're tired and exhausted. So all of those three things are technically one. We feel drained because we are overwhelmed, because we take on too much and we do too much. Or the other side, like what Bethany you mentioned, is checking what's in it for me, because what we might be, the reason why we might also be feeling overwhelmed or feeling burnout, or drained, is because we're doing a lot of things for everyone else and not very much for ourselves. And especially as a parent, this one rings true for so many people. And what can you do, right? What can you do when you are in this place, in this space? Um, Honestly, self-care. That's like, and self-care means so many different things. Within that self-care is this: when, if you're looking at the list of what you're doing that is on your to-do list, right, whether it's for yourself, for your business, for your family, for everyone, you're going to look at that list and you're going to see what's in it for me. I'm going to use kids for example right now because I have kids, you have a child, and many of my listeners or viewers have children as well or will be having children. So and I'm going to bring boundaries in this as well. Okay. As a parent, it is not your job to do everything for your kids. Trust your kids that they're more than capable of doing everything for themselves. I'll give you one example of many. When your child makes a mess, no matter how old they are, okay, trust that they're more than capable of dealing with that mess all on their own. In the beginning, you can just watch and observe, right? And guide them without taking over. Oh, let me just do it because it's easier, right? But it's harder to just watch and observe. But trust them, trust the process, trust that they are more than capable of doing it on their own because they are. And when you let go of control, because when you trust, that means you let go of control, you gain the ultimate control. And you get to observe your child accomplish things.
Yeah.
And they grow their confidence in that as well. And they all of a sudden see prove that they're more than capable of cleaning up that spilled milk all over the floor and the counters, right?
Right.
And I know for myself, my one of my fears and worries and why I want to take over was because this milk is going to destroy the counters or the floor. But in reality, how long will the milk need to stay on this counter for the counter to be damaged and destroyed?
Right.
Quite some time. So technically, I'm going to say half an hour, could be even more, right? But if your kid takes half an hour to clean that mess on their own, first time, the second time it happens, it'll be a lot less. The third time will be a lot less. And guess what happens? We um, we start to feel free because now we see that we have one less thing to worry about, mess. And as parents, that's one of the things that we worry about the most. The mess that our children make, whether it's they come home from school, their shoes are everywhere, there's clothes, the snow pants, the wet snow pants are everywhere. They kick the shoes off sometimes, or the backpack and the lunch bags and everything. They're more than capable of doing that on their own. It's not my job to do these things for my kids. It's my job as a parent to teach them how to do it themselves and to keep them responsible for that. And give them a reward for that. The reward is as simple as great job. You did that. Thank you for bringing the laundry bag to the kitchen. I appreciate you. And to them, the like, ooh, you appreciate me? Oh, you're so awesome. Thank you. I love you for bringing the lunch bag here. Right? And it feels good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I actually been doing that with my son. I've been doing that more because I've always been that helicopter parent that just does everything. I'm like, oh, you're not doing it right, then let me do it. Like, just get out of the way. I got it. But in the last week or two, I have been like, okay, you made a mess. Now you got to clean it up. He'll be like, oh, I can't. And I'll be like, yes, you can. You can do it, but you got to clean up. And he's been showing me that he can clean up, and I do that. I reward him, or I'll put like if I have a quarter, I'll put 25 cents in his piggy bank, or get, thank you so much for doing that. I appreciate it. And it has showed me that he's more than capable to do things on his own. I agree completely. Mm-hmm. And if I didn't let go of that control, I would have never known. At the same time, I would it still would have been like, oh, well, he can't do it by himself. Like, there's no way. But yeah, he is more than capable. Like, just the other day, he tore up a bunch of paper, and it was all over the living room, all over the kitchen. And in the past, I would have gone and cleaned it up and then got frustrated because I'm like, well, now I got to clean this up. But this time I'm like, well, can I have you please clean up all the stuff? Like, you made the mess. I'm going to have you clean it up. And he did it. And I acknowledged him about it. And I told him, you know, thank you. I appreciate you doing that. And I have noticed that just saying those things make a tremendous difference. And now at night, I don't go real quick to clean up his toys. We do it together more. Like, I'm like, okay, you do that area, clean that, put those away. And then he's done with that. And then we move to a different area. And in the past, I would have just done it all and just been like, oh, you know, he's still playing, whatever. But then I hold that resentment, like feeling like I have too much on my plate, feeling drained and burnt out.
Right? You didn't have that boundary for yourself and for your son, and now you do. And how much freedom do you experience knowing that that boundary is there and he knows what he's responsible for and you know what you're responsible for?
Oh, it feels lighter and brighter. I feel like I'm starting to focus on different things. Like I'm not so like, oh, well, there's a mess. Like it's more like, okay, well, here's a learning opportunity for him. He's going to learn from this on how to clean up after himself. And I noticed he doesn't make a huge mess anymore like he used to. Like he has his days, of course, but it's not as messy as it's been in the past, which I'm just like, whoo, you know, it's like, oh, thank gosh. Oh my goodness. Like it's a relief. It's that like, that's off my shoulders.
Yeah, see, and that right there is a perfect example of once we allow others to come in and take responsibility for their own thing, it frees us up and we're able to let go of feeling overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Or feeling exhausted from having so many things on our shoulders, because that's where it really comes from. It comes from us feeling a tremendous sense of responsibility for everyone, and especially as a parent. So, and I'll share a little bit of my own personal, I guess, example and story with that is this, because I have been learning quite a bit of how to raise kids without intuitively. I guess that's the way that I would explain it. Raising kids consciously and intuitively as a conscious parent, and it really comes down to this. I have been trusting my kids with a lot, with knowing that they're going to be taking care of their hygiene, knowing that they're going to keep their rooms clean and tidy, knowing that they're going to pick up after themselves. Yeah, sometimes with reminders, but I don't need to, and I don't allow myself to get angry and upset when I remind them. And the reminders are as simple as this: what are you forgetting to do before we go to bed? Right? And they mentally go through their own list, and which helps them have their own sense of responsibility of what they are responsible for. And they go through that mental list that they have of the things that they're responsible for. Some starting from when they come home and the mess that they can leave by the front door, I don't deal with that because it's not my responsibility. And I've let them know. I've set that clear boundary with when they make messes. So this is where the example came from. And I'm going to bring my husband into this. Okay. And I know he might not like to be brought into conversation, but unfortunately, as a coach and as a storyteller, it's important to bring our own personal life into this. Okay. Because he learned from it. And I learned from that as well. And why not share our combined learning with everyone? So what happened yesterday? And I guess it kind of happened a few days before, where my husband decided that he was going to give all the control of dealing with the kids to me, because, and it's difficult for most people to admit, especially men, that, and actually especially women as well. So it doesn't matter whether you're men or a woman, for people to admit that we don't know everything. And that is where the place that he was coming from, because him and I, we We have a little bit of different views of how to raise children, where I trust them 99% of the time. And with him, I'm not really clear on the percentage, but I would say about 50%. Okay. So I let go of control when it comes to my children. And with him, there's a lot of control involved when it comes to raising the children and getting them to do certain things, right? Or not to do certain things. So what, I don't remember exactly what he said, but basically the conversation was this. I want you to take full control of the kids because I don't know what to do. I don't know how. So I can watch and observe what you do and how you do it and learn from you. That's what it was. Um, and and he's been thanking me for that ever since, because it allowed him to feel free, that he doesn't have to be dealing with all of these things, right? Because he was feeling overwhelmed and stressed and just burnt out and tired and exhausted, which is completely understandable. And I was feeling that way, not because of dealing with the kids, but because I felt like I needed to monitor how he was dealing with them as well, right? So yesterday, our son, he was playing with ice, with water from the machine. You know, you push on the fridge to get the ice, and the ice falls on the floor, and it starts melting fairly quickly. And then the dog comes in, and she steps everywhere with her feet, licks the ice, makes mess. Like he spills some water, and my husband gets upset, and he tells me to go and deal with it and deal with the situation. And I don't get upset very often, but in this case, I got upset, and I'm sorry to say, but I snapped. And at the same time, I'm not sorry to say, because the old me would have just been quiet and took it and not said anything. Whereas now I speak my truth. I show up authentically. So that is when I allow myself to feel free. Because if I kept it in, I would not feel free. I would feel like a caged bird. So I spoke and I told and I reminded him, you gave me full control. So I'm reminding you that this right now sounds like you are trying to take control of the situation where you do not need to. So please just sit and observe and learn of how to deal with the situation. Okay. The way I dealt with it is, I know what you're doing. I know you made a mess. There's nothing wrong with making a mess. Just clean it up. And I just stood there watching him, right?
Mm.
And he did all of that. He cleaned it up by himself. That's it. And in the end, my husband got to see that our 7-year-old son was more than capable of cleaning up a lot of water off the floor, a lot of mess, which his initial reaction was, oh my God, this water is going to destroy the house. Right. Whereas again, it wasn't all over the house. It was on tiles, and yes, a little bit on the carpet, but it's just water. It dries up, and he didn't believe that our son was capable of cleaning up after himself. Right. And again, he realized that it was a rational reaction and learned from it by just observing. And I share that in hopes that you yourselves, whoever's listening or watching, trust one another as a couple. Trust one another of your children and yourself, that they're more than capable of doing it. And then just observing and watching magic unfold, right? Because in the end, our son, he felt empowered, and he felt energized, and he got his appetite back. So he sat down and he ate. Because before that, he kept saying that he wasn't hungry. He wasn't hungry. He wanted to do this and this and that. He has ADHD. I mean, nowadays, who doesn't? Let's be honest, right?
Right.
So,
yeah.
right. So he wanted to get some water and ice so he can play with it, because he wasn't hungry. He wanted to eat. And also, this is where with eating as well, I'm the one that took control with eating, because my husband wanted to make sure that our son ate. And I mean, that's a whole entire topic that we can discuss at another time, but eating habits with kids and how we can approach that. Where I've learned a great deal is just really putting it in front of your kid, putting the food in front of your kid, and trusting them that just put one thing on there that they'll eat. That's it. Doesn't have to be very much. It can be just a little thing that they'll eat, and everything else, just trust them. Leave it there. Don't push them. Don't tell them what to do. Don't need to remind them. They're not stupid. They're a lot smarter than you believe they are, than you give them credit for. Oh my God, they're so smart.
Yeah. I agree. Because I like to give Uriah sometimes the choice. Okay, well, you have this, this, and this. What would you like to eat? And that takes it away from me being like, oh, what am I going to make him today? Now it's just like, okay. And a lot of the times it's stuff that's in the refrigerator that he can just grab himself. And I love that. I'm like, sweet, and I always am like, good job. You're doing great, encouraging them, like you said, with your son and how he felt empowered. I see that with my son. He gets super excited when he does something for himself and he's able to learn different things like that. It's really awesome to watch. I love watching it. And before I would have been the one just to do it, not let him. But being able, it's so much better to see it.
And it also comes from a place of knowing who you are, right? Like I started in the beginning with that quote. Honestly, the ultimate freedom is knowing who we are.
Yes.
Showing up as that version of ourselves, not who somebody else wants us to be, not who we think we should be based on who we're talking to, the circle of friends, where we're working. Just knowing who you are in any situation and showing up as yourself. And that is how we're able to then give control or gain control without trying to gain control in any situation. And especially with our kids, when we show up as our authentic selves, believe it or not, your kids are watching. They are paying attention. Even if they're playing video games and it almost looks like and sounds like they have no idea what you're doing in the kitchen, what you and your partner are talking, discussing, they do. Whether consciously or subconsciously, they are registering all of that information in, and what they are being exposed to in their life will actually be the determining factor of who they're going to be spending their life with afterwards, after they're gone or after they move out of your house.
Right. Yeah, because it's interesting. Me and Brian had a conversation the other day, and I could tell Uriah was listening to us. And I'm just like, well, like maybe we should have this conversation later. Like, I don't know if it's the right conversation to have around him, because we were talking about my stepdaughter. And that's a whole stressful situation. But like it was, but at the same time, it's good that we talked about it in front of him, because he does have a stepsister and he should know that. Instead of being so hidden. Like her mother likes it to be. But I'm open with it. I'm just like, that's my stepdaughter.
I mean, I personally would agree that it's important for siblings to know of one another. And in my case, there was an experience that I went through with my daughter this summer where she was out later than she's supposed to be. And I was panicking because I've gone through a loss of twins, and she's of that age where she's understanding of things. And I wanted to let her know that, first of all, she has siblings on the other side. And also understand where my fears are coming from without, and I did it in a way without making her feel guilt or shame or embarrassment or anything like that. Just helping her to understand my pain and my struggle without telling her, you did this and I feel this way because of that. Right. And it can be difficult to find the right way to say these things, but it comes with practice. And that practice starts inside here, where we in our head, where we practice saying it and how we would say it, and then listen to us say it to ourselves, and listening for any trigger words that might trigger us, which might trigger anyone that we're having conversation with. And of course, sometimes we might not be aware of their triggers because we don't know them. But practicing it in our minds is important, and it does not make us crazy, right?
Right.
It's a skill we're trying to practice of using the words in the right way that will be inspiring and motivating as opposed to draining and painful.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And it helps you show the real, the you, the how you are, the yeah, they got tongue tied, but you know what I mean. And to the viewers that don't know what I mean, like, that better version of yourself, the who you are.
Yeah, exactly. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah. So as I'm looking at the time, I'm like, ooh, we've hit that hour. Probably a little bit less on the recording, but you know,
Yeah. I
so
enjoyed this. And I know when we were talking before, I was like, well, I don't want to bring up the situation, but I'm glad I did, because it shows people that we deal with our own stuff too. We don't have it all figured out. Like, we're all growing and learning and figuring out new stuff, and it's just one of those growing opportunities
yeah.
that we're able to have.
And that, I mean, that's exactly why I've come up with Heal the Unicorn podcast call, because of all the stuff that we are carrying on the inside. Um, it needs to be released, because if we continue to carry it on the inside, it's like it's like you take a slow releasing poison pill, and it's slowly releasing itself into your system and poisoning you from the inside. And once we talk about that poison that we've put into our body, we've take that pill out, and we're able to actually let go, so it stops poisoning us from the inside. That's why I don't go to church, but a lot of people, and I'm not a religious person. I am a spiritual person. If we're going to put labels on one another, which most of the world does like to do that. So, and there you go. That's the label. That is, I'm a spiritual person. But when you go to confession, that is the beauty of confession, where you take the poison pill from inside and you take it out and you share with someone and you release it. And what also happens is when you take it out of yourself and you talk about it, you not only are releasing and healing, you allow yourself to, you free up the space for the solution
Yeah.
to come in. And quite often it happens through conversation itself, through, oh my God, I didn't realize that. Oh, wow, that makes so much sense now. And that is why it's important to talk about the things that are inside of us, that are bothering us and upsetting us. And sometimes, if not most of the time, it involves other people. So people do talk about one another, friends or not friends. And that's why I don't take these conversations personally. And it does not bother me when my friends go and talk about me to somebody else. It's not, what other people think of you is none of your business. That is what I live by.
Yeah.
And honestly, they can talk about me however they want. I don't care, because they get to learn a lot in that experience for themselves. And then perhaps the listener might learn as well, right?
Yeah.
To each their own. Um, so thank you, Bethany, for today's
Oh yeah.
call, conversation, and most importantly, for sharing the things that are uncomfortable to
Right.
share and talk about.
Yeah, you're welcome. And thank you for having this amazing channel where we can express ourselves and just being there for us, and for you expressing your painful spots as well.
Yeah.
It shows us we're not alone. We're all in this together, and we all have like the same shit that we have to deal with.
Yeah,
It's just
exactly.
it's in different situations and different experiences, and yeah.
Yeah, and it's very important. Like I said, it's very important to get it out, get it off your chest. That's another phrase that we all hear so often. Get it off your chest, and you'll feel lighter. There's so much truth to that. And when I have my calls with my clients, and when they get things off their chest, they feel so much lighter, and I can see the energy
Yeah.
shifts. I can not only see, but I can also hear it. Um, and then they're themselves coming up with a lot of solutions to their problem just by talking about it, right? And it's also important that the person that you're talking to holds space for you. That right there is a huge key, because as a priest would in the confession, they're not there to tell you solution to your problems. They're not tell you what to do, what you did wrong or anything. They're there to acknowledge you and validate you and normalize it for you.
Mm.
Really? That's what a coach does as well. Not that I think about it. So
Right,
like
exactly. Yeah.
priest in a way, and listening to the things that you're saying, but listening to what you're actually not saying,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And help you to become aware of those things. And then what you do with it is entirely up to you.
Right. Yeah. And from personal experience, like just having that coach client relationship with you, um, yeah, just having that space, it just opens the door, and it like is it's so empowering to have that conversation. Because sometimes, I mean, like you can't even like getting more open with my husband, but in the past I wouldn't really talk about some of these things, and I'm realizing that that's super important in a relationship, but that's besides the point, because that's a whole different topic on relationship.
It's right on point as well,
Yeah.
because when we can also feel overwhelmed when we feel like we cannot express ourselves to our partners. That's
Yeah.
huge reason as to why so many people feel overwhelmed as well. Because again, when you feel like as a mother or a father, when you feel like you have so much on your shoulder and you're responsible for all of these things, and you feel like your partner is not contributing enough to it, how do you have that conversation? And
Right.
I mean, you can figure it out on your own how to have that conversation, but it really comes down to playing off each other's strengths without pointing out each other's weaknesses.
Right.
It's as simple as that. You see what your strengths are when it comes to taking care of the whole entire household and, family life, what your strengths are when it comes to that, and what your weaknesses are,
Right.
right? I don't want to say you ignore the weaknesses, because you don't. You can turn them into strengths, but your strengths usually would be the opposite of each other, right? And then you empower one another through your strengths. This is what you're great at, and I applaud you, and I am so thankful for you of taking on this responsibility, right?
Right.
So I don't have to. And these are the things that these are actually the words that my husband has said to me with taking care of the kid and being responsible for the kids, because it's such a weight off his shoulder, and it's a weight off my shoulder as well, because then I can lead by example, is what I love doing the most. And that's what I do as a coach as well. This is what my clients do in their lives as well. They lead by example without having the need of being a sergeant and telling everyone what to do and how it must be done. But
Yeah.
anyway, this is a really long wrap up. Thank you and goodbye until next week. Because I mean, we're both very passionate about this.
Right.
We both have a lot of experience with that, and we both have a deep desire to help as many people as we can through these conversations.
Right. Yeah.
That's what we're here for. So, anyways, other than that, once again, thank you, Bethany, for being an awesome guest. And thank you, everyone, for listening, for watching. If you could do me a huge favor, if you watched this far, guaranteed there was so much for you, which means that anyone that you know, there would be so much for them. If you can do me a huge favor by sharing it with your audience, with your family, with your friends, with anyone, and with everyone, I would truly, truly, truly appreciate that. And I would be forever thankful. Um, because again, we want to help as many people as we can with the words and the experiences that we share. And we can't do it alone, right? That's why your help is so important in getting it out there in as many ways as possibly possible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yes, I agree. Yep.
so
And and thank you for having me. Thank you to all the listeners for listening to us and for allowing us to have a open space where we could share our vulnerabilities and our heart.
yeah, thank you. Yes. So other than that, I love and appreciate you, Bethany, and all of the listeners and viewers. And until next time,
Until next time. Bye.
bye.